Okay, Chapter 6, Section 3, Biodiversity. The value of biodiversity. Biological diversity or biodiversity is the sum total of the genetically based variety of all organisms in the biosphere. Ecosystem diversity. The variety of habitats, communities, and ecological processes in the living world. Species diversity is the number of species in the biosphere. Genetic diversity is the sum total of all different forms of genetic information carried by all organisms living on Earth today. Key concept number 1. What is the value of biodiversity? Biodiversity is one of the Earth's greatest natural resources. Species of many kinds have provided us with foods, industrial products, and medicines, including painkillers, antibiotics, heart drugs, antidepressants, and anti-cancer drugs. That's why there are species in the rainforest that we haven't even discovered yet that we are searching for different forms of medicines. Okay, so a lot of medicines that we use have been derived over the time from different plants. The next key concept for this section is what are the current threats to biodiversity? Human activity can reduce biodiversity by altering habitats, hunting species to extinction, introducing toxic compounds into food webs, introducing foreign species to new environments. Okay, one example of a foreign species to new environments is in the Mississippi up towards the Wabash River up north between Indiana and Illinois, or on Illinois side down the Mississippi River, there are carp that were not indigenous, which means they don't belong here. They're from Asia that have gotten into that water stream, and they're breeding ungodly numbers. So people actually go, and these carp, when you drive your boat down the river, the noise actually makes the fish jump out of the water, and they jump into boats and stuff. And a lot of people go up there, and that's what they do. They drive their boats down through there, and these carp. So they're trying to keep these carp are swimming north up the river and through the various channels, and they're trying to keep them out of the Great Lakes, because if they get into the Great Lakes, it'll wreck the ecosystem. So that's just one example that I know of off the top of my head. Extinction occurs when a species disappears from all or part of its range. Okay, so many animals become extinct, and when they become extinct, this means they're no more. They're all gone. Like the dinosaurs, they're all extinct. Okay.
Isn't the buffalo extinct?
No, buffalo are not extinct. There's some other different species extinct. I have trouble thinking of them right off the top of my head. But dinosaurs are extinct. They're no longer on Earth. A species whose population size is declining in a way that places it in danger of extinction is called an endangered species. All right, an endangered species, I can tell you one, polar bears are an endangered species. Tigers are an endangered species. Some lions are endangered species. Certain types of elephants are endangered species. As the population of an endangered species declines, the species loses genetic diversity. Okay. Our next thing is habitat alteration. Habitat alteration is when land is developed, natural habitats may be destroyed. Okay. One habitat alteration I can think of right off the top of my head is that of the rainforest. Right now in South America, where the rainforest is, they're clear-cutting the rainforest to make farmland so that they can plant crops. Okay, that's habitat alteration. Development of often splits ecosystem into pieces, a process called habitat fragmentation. The smaller a species' habitat is, the more vulnerable the species is to further disturbance. Demand for wildlife products. Throughout history, humans have pushed some animal species to extinction by hunting them for food or other products. Today in the U.S., endangered species are protected from hunting. The Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, CITES, bans international trade in products derived from endangered species. All right, something I think of is elephants or elephant tusks, the ivory that comes from elephant tusks. That was traded once upon a time. Rhinoceros horns, black rhinoceros horns, a certain type of white rhinoceros. One of the rhinoceros species is endangered because they were hunting and killing it for its horns. Another form of biodiversity is pollution. Many forms of pollution can threaten biodiversity. One of the most serious problems occurs when toxic compounds accumulate in the tissues of organisms. DDT, one of the first pesticides, is a good example. Okay, DDT was this pesticide which killed insects, but it had some bad side effects, so they ended up banning it. For a long time, DDT was considered harmless, and it drained into rivers and streams in low concentrations. However, DDT has two hazardous properties. It is non-biodegradable, which means that it cannot be broken down by organisms. And once DDT is picked up by organisms, it cannot be eliminated from their body. So once organisms got DDT into their body, they couldn't get rid of it. They couldn't clean it out. No, DDT, it's a chemical. When DDT enters food webs, it undergoes biological magnification. So what this means is that one species has it in its system and they're on the bottom of the food chain, then they're eaten by another species. Well, the DDT doesn't ever leave, so it just makes its way through the food chain. So in biological magnification, concentrations of harmful substances increase in organisms at higher trophic levels in a food chain or food web. In 1962, biologist Rachel Carson wrote Silent Spring, which alerted people to the danger of biological magnification. Okay, so here we have a graphic, and here's the magnification of DDT concentration. Okay, so it shows 1. Okay, magnification of that at 1,000. There's the producers. The zooplankton, the small fish, the large fish, the fish-eating birds. Okay? So what that's saying is even though there were small amounts getting into the water, each small amount was getting into the small organism, which was eaten by the bigger organism, and they ate more small organisms. So yeah, there was a small amount getting into the water, but when you got to the top of the food chain, to the top predators, as in the apex predators, as in the fish-eating birds, like shown in this graphic here, which is a bald eagle, they were eating the species below them, which it ate a lot of the species below it, and the concentration they were ingesting was a much higher concentration. The widespread use of DDT threatened populations of many animals, especially fish-eating birds like the bald eagle, with extinction. So the bald eagle, once upon a time, was in the endangered species list. I don't think it is today. So by the early 1970s, DDT was banned in the U.S. and in most other industrialized countries. As a result, affected bird populations have recovered, which is a good thing. Introduced species. Another threat to biodiversity comes from plants and animals that humans transport around the world either accidentally or intentionally. Invasive species are introduced species that reproduce rapidly because their new habitat lacks the predators that would control their population. All right, one invasive species I can think of, I don't know if y'all have seen this, but in the Everglades in Florida, the invasive species there right now is the boa constrictor. Okay, the boa constrictor is not native to that area, but there's no predators of the boa constrictor in that area, so the boas are just reproducing unbelievable. And there's actually a show on Animal Planet where there's a group of people down there, and that's what they do. They get called out to get these big, huge boa constrictors that have been living, that come onto people's property. And it's not the boas, it's the pythons, I think. I don't know. It's a large constrictor snake. Me and actually Mr. Bates were talking about it yesterday. We were talking about his snakes. Hundreds of invasive species, including zebra mussels in the Great Lakes and the leafy spurge across the northern Great Plains, are already causing ecological problems in the United States. Conserving biodiversity. Conservation is the wise management of natural resources, including the preservation of habitats and wildlife. Strategies for conservation. Many conservation efforts are aimed at managing individual species to keep them from becoming extinct. All right, so now our third key term of the section is, what is the goal of conservation biology? Conservation efforts focus on protecting entire ecosystems as well as a single species. Protecting an ecosystem will ensure that the natural habitats and the interactions of the many different species are preserved at the same time. Conservation challenges. Protecting resources for the future can require people to change the way they earn their living today. Conservation regulations must be informed by solid research and must try to maximize benefits while minimizing economic costs. Okay, so as you can see, this section is relatively short. So we'll move into the section quiz. The type of biodiversity that includes the inheritance information carried by the Earth's organisms is called C, genetic diversity. Populations of invasive species tend to A, decrease, B, increase rapidly, C, remain constant, or D, increase then decrease. B, increase rapidly. The wise management of natural resources, including the preservation of habitats and wildlife, is known as A, biodiversity, B, conservation, C, habitat alteration, or D, ecosystem diversity. B, conservation. Number 4, by focusing on protecting specific ecosystems, biologists hope to preserve A, global biodiversity, B, biological magnification, C, invasive species, or D, habitat fragmentation. A, global biodiversity. Number 5, in a food pyramid, biological magnification results in A, increased amount of toxic substances in the organisms at the lowest level, B, increased amount of toxic substance in the organisms at the highest level, C, decreased number of levels in the food pyramid, or D, increased amount of toxic substance in the surrounding air or water. B, increased amount of toxic substance in the organisms at the highest level, because the organisms at the highest level eat all the species below them in the food web, and they ingest more toxic substance.